Welcome to FOB TV, the future of business. I'm your host, Kevin Benedict. I'm a futurist and lecturer here at TCS, and I want to thank all of you guys for tuning into the show. So thank you for doing that. I'm really excited to introduce you to Christopher Willis. Christopher, thanks for joining the program today.
Thank you very much for having me, Kevin.
Now, Christopher and I have known each other for many, many years. We've kind of watched each other go through our career journeys and had a lot of experience together through everything from, I think we started connecting around mobility and mobile solutions and enterprise solutions with iPhones and all kinds of stuff way back when. And we've stayed in contact ever since. So, Chris, thanks for joining.
Thanks. Yeah, it has been quite a while. It's been a journey.
Yeah, it has. And now Chris is a podcaster. Chris, so Wordbirds, what a name. How did you come up with Wordbirds as a podcast name?
So the content for Wordbirds at the time, 6 seasons ago, was content strategy. And the team came up with some names, and one of them was like Content Strategy Revolution. And I said, that sucks. I don't want to be on that show. Nobody wants to listen to that show. Why don't we be something light and easy, like, I don't know, Wordbirds? And I walked out of the room. And the next day I got an email from our new Wordbirds podcast domain. And I thought, oh no, they listened to me. But it's worked really well because it's an open concept, right? It's a conversation amongst people who care about words. And that's allowed me to evolve it from content strategy to marketing strategy to this season 6, where we're talking to communicators, both internal and external communicators, about the rise, the ascent of communications in the business.
Ah, that's fascinating. Now, I failed to introduce your day job. So Christopher Willis, he's the Chief Marketing Officer at Axios HQ. And tell us about Axios HQ.
I am. Axios HQ is an AI-powered communication platform. The product is rooted in years of research around reader behavior. It keeps staff and stakeholders better informed using smart brevity. I'm not sure if you're familiar. There's a book, Smart Brevity, written by the founders of Axios, about making it easier to engage your audience, making it easier for the reader to experience the information that you want. We've taken that, packaged that in with AI and additional technology to create a communications platform that communications teams inside the biggest companies in the world, all the way down to SMB, use to engage their audiences.
Oh, boy. And where are you calling in from before we dig into the meat of it? Where are you calling in?
I am located in Stowe, Massachusetts. It's about 26 miles west of Boston, but we don't have a highway, so it's about an hour commute if I ever needed to go there.
Oh, no. Got it. So let's just start our conversation today, Chris, with some very basic question. How should and how does communication serve an organization? Let's start there.
Well, it's interesting. That's a very loaded question, Kevin. So communications as a role in a business starts, in a small business with the CEO. So somebody says to the CEO, hey, you're kind of crap at telling us what's going on. He just became, or she just became, the head of communications in their organization. And it's about keeping people aligned with the business. So think in terms of that email that you get from your small business CEO. You're going to get financial information for the business. You're going to get the projects that are happening inside the business, things that engage you with what's going on. Now, superimpose that over the biggest companies in the world, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of employees. The same thing. How do I keep people aligned and engaged? And then add to the next piece of this, most people are remote. So what you learned at the water cooler doesn't exist anymore because there's no more water cooler unless you have one in your house, which is kind of cool. I'd be psyched about that. I don't have one. But all of the things that bring people together to work as a single entity need to move through this communications function, whether that's the CEO of a small company, the communications department of a mid-sized company, or the chief communications officer of an enterprise. It's about bringing that that central message out to both stakeholders external to the business and employees internal to the business.
So what did the founders of Axios HQ believe that they were bringing to the table in this area?
So HQ was born out of Axios Media. If you're listening and you're not familiar, Axios.com. Axios Media is a news media site. And Axios is famous specifically for the way that they communicate. Obviously, great news, very impactful, but they communicate in smart brevity. And so it's keying you into, like, we're going to give you one big thing. Here's the first thing that we're going to talk about is this thing. Now let's go deeper. And I'm going to give you some bullets of what's here. And now let's talk about what comes next. And these are the things that we're going to drop into next. And it makes it very easy to understand and absorb the information that's delivered to you, because most people aren't going to take time to read a full page of information. They're going to scan. So how do we make this content scannable, but still impactful? And as they were rolling out news in this format through email newsletters primarily, customers were calling, readers, organizations were calling and saying, hey, I'd love to use this approach. Some of the biggest financial services firms in the world, for instance, were amongst the first customers of what would eventually be Axios HQ, saying, I want to be able to write like this. So Axios Media created a training program where you could learn smart brevity. As they were doing that, the concept of software to help deliver smart brevity was born. And that was the basis of Axios HQ. We can help companies create more impactful communications that are read by more people, because that's the gateway to downstream business results. If nobody's reading your emails, if nobody's paying attention to your communications, it doesn't matter how good they are. They're not serving the business need. So making this consumable, building up engagement, and then placing that engagement in different areas of the business to drive real value.
I know that's always a struggle, because there's two groups in the company, it seems like. There's those that want to send out short, punchy sentences, and others that send you emails like a book. Mm-hmm. And then they wonder why nobody reads their emails. But I can see both sides of the story. If there really is that much that's important to know, shouldn't we take the time to read everything and consume everything? It's almost like we should just flag the author. This author is worth reading. These other authors, if they give me 4 pages, maybe I'll just hit the first paragraph.
But as you look at the way that things are written in business, like, I'm going to find all the flowery words. I'm going to create all of this additional emotion and put more and more into this piece of content that I'm going to deliver to folks. Just give me the headline. Like, what does this say? And when you think about internal communications, all of these companies are doing back to work, return to the office transitions at this point. Mm-hmm. They're going to deliver that news in a page-long document that's going to be difficult to understand. It's going to confuse folks. It's going to leave a lot of questions. Lead with the headline. We're coming back to the office. One big thing, we're coming back to the office. Okay, now I know what we're talking about. Go deeper. This is what we're going to be doing. It's going to be 3 days a week. We're going to expect this. This is what's happening. Okay, I see where you're headed. What comes next? How we start this? Then we get into the what's next. And if you want to have commentary, drop a thought bubble. Like, this is what I think, and this is why we're doing this. But it's just laying out the same information that we deliver in 1,000 words in something that will take 2 minutes to understand and absorb. The end result is better, even with less words, because more people are going to leave understanding what's expected of them. And I mean, you know me, it's difficult for me because I like a lot of words. I like to write a lot of things and use a lot of words and make it, every thought that I have needs to come out on paper. And the transition here has been, I run marketing for the company that espouses smart brevity. I need to learn this. So I've been going to our training programs. I've been working with an editor. And we've been getting better at getting me to be a more impactful communicator. And when I do that, I get better results. And that's the real test, is what happens when I take the time to use this approach. Does it matter, or is it just lip service to the thing that we talk about in business? And in fact, it matters. People respond at a higher rate. People understand and engage at a higher rate. And people do the things that I want us to do at a higher rate when my content is more clear.
Oh, fascinating. So this is your first year here, right?
It is. I started in January.
Awesome. So you have been around, you have a lot of experience, and you chose this gig, Chief Marketing Officer at Axios HQ. What did you see there when you were digging into the company and this role, the potential role here? What did you see that attracted you and inspired you?
What I saw was huge potential. The business was created and built by media people primarily. And those people that did this built the business from 0 to 10 million in recurring revenue in 3 years. And if that's possible with people who are not primarily SaaS business to business software professionals, what could happen? Like where could we take this? And when you add to that the audience that we have for this and the amount of interest and excitement for us as an organization and the software that we bring to the market, if we can tap into any of that and convert that to actual growth, this place is unstoppable. I saw a huge opportunity. And I also think that, the founders of this organization have a fantastic track record for growing big, valuable businesses.
No, I love it. So trust is an issue whenever we talk about communication, just about anywhere. Mm-hmm. And often trust in institutions of all kind are suffering right now. We just see that. Do you have any specific approaches that Axios HQ has adopted or teach that will kind of bolster that and enhance and build and maintain trust in the audience? Is there a strategy there?
There is. It's more than just putting things down in a newsletter and sending it out. It's understanding what you're trying to accomplish with your audience. So if we talk about internal communications, for example, what are you trying to achieve? And it's not just, I did the Gallup survey and it said that I'm crap at communicating and I should communicate better. Like, it's got to be more than that. What would be the point if you did? And so obvious ones like enhancing productivity. Okay, well, what does that really mean? Because it's not just, we're doing a weekly newsletter, now you're more productive. Like, what's the recipe to drive productivity in a business? And so maybe you want to be focusing on, company news updates for the full team. And you want to be talking about employee success stories. You want to be bringing productivity tips to your employees. So you're going to do that in an all staff. You're going to do HR updates. You're going to do sales updates. You're going to do industry news and updates. That recipe together starts to directly impact the productivity of employees. That's going to make their jobs easier to perform. It's going to make daily work become more enjoyable. It's more than just, I'm going to say some stuff. And I think that's the part that we're seeing happen more and more. Communications as a role in the business is on the ascent in the same way that HR was 5 years ago. As HR went from a thing that you had to have to now having a chief people officer sitting in the C-suite, we're seeing that rise in communications from a thing that somebody needs to do to having a chief communications officer in your business. And that's taking you from being tactical, hey, go tell them stuff, to being strategic, drive business initiatives. One of my favorite examples that I heard earlier in the year was the government of Great Britain has a communications team, and their objective for 2024 says nothing about the number of communications that they send or the billboards that they put up. Their goal is to increase blood donations. That's the needle they're trying to move. So now it's finding the recipe of all the different touch points and ways that they can communicate to build engagement so that people go and donate blood. But they have an actual real world goal. It's not just make people understand better. It's literally measured in, I guess, liters. Is England liters or gallons? Unclear. But it's a liquid measure.
Yep. Got it. So let me ask a personal question here. How much communication is too much? There are, I have to tell you, TCS does, especially during COVID, man, they did a phenomenal job. They would have desk yoga classes. They would continually remind you to rest your eyes and to look at, the whole eyeball relaxation so your eyes aren't too straight. I mean, they would really invest in you as a person and try to give you yoga classes that you could do at any time with the yoga instructors that they brought in and filmed, all kinds of stuff. And I really appreciated that. Outside of COVID, though, I've seen some companies that just inundate their people with 25 emails a day. And the first thing people do when they walk into the office is they delete those 25.
Thank God for analytics, because that's how you solve this. We just literally, as an organization, we just went through this. We just had a major communications audit run by our head of internal communications, and a number of our internal emails, newsletters got put on. I'm going to say put on hold, canceled, don't happen anymore. Because what we're shooting for is high engagement. And as soon as you see that engagement go down, it potentially means you're over communicating with folks. You're giving them too much to look at so they don't look at anything. So start back at the beginning. We're scaling back from, let's say, 20 to 10. Let's get those engagement rates back up. And then we can think about what comes next. But if you're not looking at anything, then none of it's having any benefit. So it doesn't matter if we cancel a couple of them because you weren't looking at any of them. And it's something that, for my weekly, I have a bi-weekly marketing update that I send out to the exec team. I expect 100% open rate. Like, I expect that. And if I don't get it, something's wrong somewhere, and we need to use that information to get back to that 100% open rate. If people don't want to know what I'm doing, that's a bigger statement on me than anything else. People should be excited to hear what my team is doing.
Oh, wow. So let's talk about technology and analytics and all that. So what role does technology, AI, machine learning, data analytics, all that play in shaping your strategy? I mean, how do you see that evolving in the future?
It continues to grow. I think that when you look at where technology plays right now for the communicator, obviously content creation is something that can be done by a computer at this point. But realistically, do you want that? Most of the people that work in communications organizations come from either government background or journalism backgrounds, and they can write just fine. So the idea that, hey, ChatGPT, write up a email for me, that's not attractive to them. Where technology helps is across this flow of, alignment, crafting, and engagement. So from an alignment standpoint, looking at the strategy, like, what are we trying to communicate? How are we trying to communicate it? Where does this fit in our overall cadence? To the planning, what have we communicated in the past? What do we need to communicate now? And how does what we communicate now tie to our past communications? So the ability for AI to look at everything that you've ever said and say, hey, 3 weeks ago, you said this, it actually resonated pretty well with your audience based on your analytics. Would it be interesting now to follow this up with part 2? As we get into that crafting stage with composition and collaboration, obviously mean, again, I want to write my content, but I can get help. So again, looking at the things that we've said in the past, bringing out new content ideas based on that past communication, or dealing with the format and the flow of the content can be done with technology. Collaboration is a big thing, though. So if I'm working on my biweekly, I don't actually write it. My team does. I am the editor-in-chief of that newsletter. And so the ability to have a template that I just click the button and now we're all engaged. It's automatically assigned to all the people that are involved. They're able to come into a central place, create their piece of content, submit that for review. And when I'm happy with my total product, I can then go to that next stage of engage with distribution. So who is supposed to get this? Where are they supposed to get it? When are they supposed to get it? What happens if they don't open it? I mean, all of that is monitored through both calendaring and AI to lead back then to analytics. And how do I use analytics to be more impactful all the way back at the beginning when I start planning? And so when I think about AI in this space, again, it's not, content creation's a commodity. It's not about creating the content. It's about maximizing the results all the way through that cycle. So the whole communication workflow from strategy to analytics, and then looping back to get smarter from those analytics at the strategy and planning stage. That's where this gets really exciting.
So let's take that whole plan, that whole strategy. And if that's implemented, does that, and with all the new AI content generation technology, is that going to enhance or diminish the role of an influencer or a curator? Are they going to be more, is that going to drive more content consumption to people they know and trust? Or is that going to diminish that role? What do you think?
No, I think it's going to make the way that we see it happening inside our customer base is that it turns the person communicating into the editor-in-chief of the newsroom, essentially. So smart agents are doing pieces of the editorial process, whether it's the planning or the strategy or part of the creation or the review process. Those agents are the newsroom. But I, as a subject matter expert, as the person that runs internal communications, for instance, I'm still critical to this process because I need to have eyes on. I need to make sure that this resonates with my audience. I need to be looking at the analytics to make sure that I'm delivering the correct information to engage the way that we want to back to our strategy. What are we trying to do? We're trying to retain employees. Okay, am I doing the things that are retaining employees? And I need to be able to match up the results that I'm seeing with the financial results of the business. We're spending less money on recruiting, for instance, because we're keeping more employees highly engaged and not losing people to unforced attrition.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So this is a good segue into you and I putting on our futurist hats and looking ahead. What emerging trends in communication, Chris, do you anticipate will impact organizational communications in, let's say, the next 10 years?
I think the first part is the departmental process, and the fact that, like I said, communications as a function inside the business is becoming more strategic. It sounds so simple and obvious, but that role in many businesses has been put into be reactive to the executive team, to the CEO. We need to say something, please say it. Mm-hmm. Versus we're going to, as a communications organization, drive a business result. We have picked these three, and now we're going to go and be measured based on the end result. And that shift, as easy as it is to say, is very difficult in many organizations because of the reactive approach that's been built into the way that they work. So saying it to people, they're like, yeah, I totally get it. That's amazing. Are you doing it? No, no, not yet. And so most of what we're seeing is the next 5 years of growth. Communications as a function is there to drive engagement, to drive alignment, to bring people back to the center of the business. So if that's the trajectory is we're going to get more strategic and we're going to do more to bring people in, then the future here looks like better understanding the methods and mechanics to drive the business results that companies are trying to see. If my communications team is going to be more central, they need to understand how to build alignment and direction in the business, or breaking down departmental silos, or helping to navigate through change in the business. And by understanding those things, boosting engagement, managing crisis and policy adherence, those things start to take root in a business and show real value. And so this is about that iterative process we talked about of, am I saying the things that drive the engagement, and is that engagement doing the things that I expect it to do? Again, as easy as it is to say that, this is the next 5 years of evolution to get us to where we need to be. Once we're there, then this becomes a very central role in the business, in the same way that, like I said, HR has become central to the business. It's understood the communications organization is about bringing people together and driving real business results. And that's not a given today.
So being more strategic means you guys are going to have your hands full. The things you described, they're breaking down silos between between business units, things like that. Those are massively difficult. Do you expect your role, Chris, to be easier or harder in the next 10 years?
I think there's a little bit of both. There are things that technology brings that make it easier on the execution side. But I think that the need for constant innovation and the ability to innovate in that way is going to be the thing that continues to make this difficult. The ability to dig into that high level vision of what I think the future needs to be, but then drop down into the excellence of execution to make sure that it's actually working. And the people that think that they can just ask the computer to do that are the ones that are going to wash out. The AI is not going to take your job. You're going to lose your job because of the way that you try and use AI. That's a controversial statement of the day, but AI is super additive. AI is not replacing unless you think that it can replace, and then it ends up killing you.
Oh, yeah. And when we look at publications and the media out there, we can see massive changes. You and I opened up our conversation talking about podcasts. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, there was nobody listening to podcasts. And now podcasts influence the world. So I wonder if in 5 years from now, corporations will just go to their central podcasts and have you running a podcast. And that's how all the information for inside the company gets distributed. Because we've certainly seen a change on the outside of our companies.
Oh, absolutely. This has been a banner month for moving from traditional media to modern media, yeah. With many of the political candidates just showing up in unexpected places, and that tells you that things are changing. Yeah. And I don't think Wordbirds is the next place that Tim Walsh is going to show up, but the fact that he's on SmartLess and Trump is on Rogan, and they're all on Howard Stern, and it's a very different world than I think what we're used to.
It demonstrates a different world, and I could see that coming inside our companies as well. With that, Chris, I want to thank you so much for sharing your expertise and experience with all of us. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.